Welcome to How to Build a Tent, a podcast on how to make you successful. My name is Matt Williams. Thank you for listening to the show, sharing the show with a friend. I apologize for those of you who listened to yesterday's episode. There was some popping. We are reformatting the show, and I'm getting some new upgraded microphone, and there's just a transition process of me getting the hang of it. I'm very sorry about that. Thank you for listening and continuing to support the show. I appreciate all of you guys who have been subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, you're missing out on such great content. You're missing out on partnering with us as the network grows. We're on the Fight Laugh Feast network. Go over to fightlaughfeast.com. Put in HtBT in the memo field, and you'll get to see all the great content that's coming out. You'll get to be a part of what the Lord's doing, and you'll also get an HtBT mug. When you put an HtBT in the memo field, when you subscribe for any of the tiers, you'll get that, and while supplies last, you're going to get a pint glass too. There's like never a better time to subscribe. If you've been on the fence, it's time to get in the fight. It's time to support these shows. It's time to support the network and what all the guys are doing, and get on board with us and help us to proclaim the gospel. And let me tell you, man, it is needed more than ever. I was just watching the intro to the Founders Ministry video that Chocolate Knox, I believe, was working on. Oh my goodness, that is already kicking some hornet's nest. I'm so excited to see that come out. I can't wait for that. And those are the kinds of things also, it's kind of on the side, that you're helping us. Like, for example, David, if you're supporting the network, you're helping David be able to do different projects like this. I'm really excited. He's actually going to be down in Florida in a month or so. Can't wait to see that guy. It's been a while. I want to talk about today of when you need to make adjustments. And that's really important for all of us in every part of our lives, not just business, but in finance, in our personal lives, in our marriages, in our relationships. When do you need to make an adjustment, and how exactly should you go about doing that? I want to cover that today's show. But before we do, there was one thing that I wanted to talk about that was just a fascinating story. I was listening to Dan Bongino's podcast. It was funny. He was also complaining about how he wasn't getting hat tips for the material he's covering. He does a lot of work on the Mueller investigation with Donald Trump and Russia collusion and all that stuff. And he has a lot of inside sources because he used to be a Secret Service man. So he has a lot of connections in the government. And he's like, why don't you guys hat tip me? But anyways, hat tipping him on this one. He was telling the story. He grew up in New York. He was telling the story before the Mayor Giuliani days, where there was this policy that the police had where they wouldn't go after like the minor crimes. And his example that he was using was, if you broke a glass at an abandoned building, you wouldn't get arrested, you wouldn't get a ticket, you wouldn't get any kind of consequence. They would just let it go because there were so many things happening on the streets that it wasn't worth it, and they wanted to kind of go after the bad behavior. And he just made a really good point that all those little things add up, and the person that breaks glass is going to come back and bring do things inside the property. They're going to bring a gun, and they're going to shoot up people and all this stuff, and it escalates because they find what they can get away with, and it gets worse. And he was also talking about how when one abandoned building has all their glass broken out, well, then the next abandoned building is going to have their glass broken out, and then buildings look more run down, and it just escalates from there because no one is stopping the little things. And that emboldens people to continue to do the bigger things. You're not respecting the law. And it just makes the community just look worse. And then as people have less pride in the community, and so they feel like they're in a worse neighborhood, and it just goes downhill and downhill. And then that's when Mayor Giuliani came in, and he cut so much of the crime back because they started prosecuting everything. Jaywalking, broken glass, graffiti, all that stuff. They went after it hard, and crime dropped overall. It was a very interesting study. And I was thinking about that for us, specifically in our business, in our departments that we manage, in our own companies, in our families. If we pay attention to the small things, and I'm not saying we got to play a hall monitor, but I'm saying even for our own lives. I was listening to this one corporate consultant. He was actually a professor of mine, and he was teaching, and I was talking with him after class, and he was I forgot why we were talking about this, but he was talking about how he leads by example, and even the small things matter. And he would pick up even the trash in the bathroom. If he was running his company and he was the CEO at the time, and he would see a paper towel in the trash that wasn't in the trash can for whatever reason, he'd just grab another paper towel and pick up the one that was on the ground and throw it away. And he would always find the little things to pick up. And he noticed that other people started following him around, or following him, not following him around, but copying his example and doing that very thing. And soon there was a culture of picking up trash, picking up the little things, and people were starting to do other little things to help around the company, and people started taking more pride in their building and their resources. And I think that is just a good reminder for us that the little things do matter. And it doesn't seem like it, and there probably isn't that big of a return on investment immediately. But when you start being faithful in those little things, they are going to accumulate, they're going to snowball, and then God's going to bless you in bigger things as well. So pay attention to those small things. Look for ways that you can improve in your family, in your household, in the offices, and wherever it is, in your church. Look for the paper towels that you can pick up. Look for the person that you can help open the door for. Start working on those little things, and you may be like, no one else does that stuff. Well, you start, and then watch over the months, over the years. Yes, things take a long time. That's just how the world works. And see other people doing the same thing. I guarantee it, when you open the door for somebody else, then you can see that over and over again. The people that are doing that are going to realize that that's a nice thing to do, and they're going to follow suit. So be the leader, be the person to step into the gap, fill the void, and do that. All right, so I wanted to talk about today, and I think this is super important, is when do you make a pivot? When do you make an adjustment? And this is so big for us because not only is it a key to being successful, but it's just key to life in general. We have to constantly making pivots. We have to constantly be making adjustments in our own lives, in our habits, in our culture, in our routines, and definitely in our business, definitely in our financing, investing strategies. We're constantly looking to make adjustments. And one of the hardest things to do, I think, is to know when to make that adjustment. And one of the times it is really unsure or uncertain of when to do that is when we have fear. And this is what I mean. Oftentimes we will start second guessing ourselves before we've let a play run out, before we let a strategy really play out. We'll start a business 6 months in and we're like, oh, we're not seeing the banging success that we thought we were going to have. Like, maybe we need to change everything. Maybe we have to just stop this business, start something else. Maybe I made a bad decision. But you haven't let the business really run its course to see if you made a decision. That is not the time to make a pivot. That is not the time to make major adjustments. Yes, you can make little critiques along the way, but throwing out your business model, throwing out your whole strategy, that is not the time to do it. You need to differentiate between the fear that you have, the anxiety that something's not going to work, and then actually when something's not working. And usually that goes a year and a half, 2 years into starting a business for sure. A lot less when you're doing financial investing. I mean, financial investing is investing. It's all financial, right? Well, I guess you can invest your time, but anyways, I meant to say investing like your portfolio. And you can probably get faster feedback from that. But specifically in a business, you want to give yourself some time. And if you are seeing progress, then you need to see it play out. Usually a year and a half, 2 years is when you need to start reevaluating to see if your strategy has paid off. And that is a really important thing to do. And what do you do then when you do need to make an adjustment? Well, you decide on what the big thing is that you're going to do that's going to change. What is the thing that the biggest problem? What is the biggest thing you got wrong? What is that one thing that's going to make the biggest impact of changing? Just focus on one thing, because if you focus on too many, you're going to get overwhelmed and you're not going to have as big an impact. Once you know what that one thing is, then go after it. Go after it hard, as fast as you, as much passion as you had when you started that business or you started that project or you started that division. Go after it. Don't be relentless, be ruthless, be a warrior, and go after that one thing. And then thirdly, we've talked about before, is evaluate your progress. Identify metrics, measurements, goals to set to get you to that next pivot, to that next place, to that adjustment, and see how much improvement that gave you. Figure out, evaluate, pray, get advice, get counseling, get other people's perspective on different things that are going on that you feel might need a pivot. Go after it, decide on something to change, and attack it, and then reevaluate it, and then if you need to, change something else. Now let's go out and be successful together. God bless.